Hello and good morning. Today I am starting out watching more of Richard Grannon's old work, specifically looking at his material about stopping emotional flashbacks. And it occurs to me that none of this is possible. None of this stuff I'm talking about is of any use to anyone if we are still dealing with serious emotional dysregulation, if we cannot manage our state, if we cannot be present. None of these ideas are going to be of any real value. They're not going to give people traction. And so I'm going back to the beginning where I first started learning about these subjects. And there are a couple of other sources online where people do get more deeply into it. I'm not as familiar with that work. So I'm going back to review what I know. No. Because here's the truth. When we're learning something, we're only retaining a minority of what we've been presented with. Out of an hour lecture, you probably retain somewhere between 0 and 20 minutes of the content. And so, first of all, just going back is always wise, no matter where you're coming in from, because ultimately it's such that best case scenario, we're not going to retain much. Then if you're here looking at this kind of material, odds are that number's closer to 0 than 20 because it's really hard to take things in, process them, file them, go back and access them later. Those systems are under so much strain that just learning things can be exhausting and overwhelming. No less trying to apply them and having to make meaningful changes in life to do so, right? So this is why I'm back here, because to me, this is page one. And I was struck recently hearing Matthew Hussey, who is a dating coach for the mainstream population of the world, saying that if you want to be successful in relationships, the first thing you have to do is manage your emotional regulation. I think he said get emotionally regulated, because he's in a position to see people coming in and being like, I'm having trouble with this. Will you help me explore what's under that? Or really help me solve it? And then the job of a good coach or counselor is to sort of say, okay, well, what could be causing the problem, first of all? And so he's going to be looking at people, not people who have trauma or specific experiences or pathologies. This is not like a special subject area. It's the special subject is human relationships. So that's really for everyone. So I know he's looking at Gen Pop, where Richard Grannon would be looking at people who have CPTSD and certain issues around that. That's very specific to that group of people showing up with those issues. Although I think it's a broader population than we account for. And I'm sort of making the case for that here, where I assume that this is specific to this kind of work, to this kind of community. But when I hear Matthew Hussey, who speaks to people, men and women, young and old, all around the world, and his emphasis is on start with emotional regulation, that says to me a lot more people out here dysregulated than I was accounting for in my own limited worldview, in my own biased way. I was like, well, it's probably only like 10-20% of the people. I don't think somebody who addresses such a diverse audience would be that passionate about saying you've got to start with emotional regulation for yourself. Don't worry about other people. Don't worry about red flags. Don't worry about anything else. Just get right with you and your emotions, because if you're not, none of this is going to stand. You can build all day and it's going to keep falling down. Whereas you could choose to take that energy, reinvest it in the work of self, and become the kind of partner you're looking for in life. Because when we move through some of this damage, we get back out to the quiet, still water beyond the surf, right? We're in the Caribbean. We're looking through the crystal blue down to the white sands below. We're in that place. Things become clear to us about who we are, where we're going, what we need, what we can or cannot take on in our lives. And I think that being clear with ourselves allows us to be clear about things in the world. So when we become what we want in our lives and someone comes in and resonates with that, it's a like attracts like kind of energy flowing on the line, rather than this attracts familiar old patterns that give me a chance to try and undo the knot of what I couldn't solve in childhood, right? That's where we operate from when we're unconscious and we're dysregulated. We're like, why am I attracted to this kind of person? It doesn't make sense. It's not about sense. It's about a subconscious drive that's far more powerful than sense. And obviously, we see who keeps winning that fight, right? Pardon. Still getting my morning intake. At least 8 ounces to start with. Also, part of good mental fitness here. When we are acting from an unconscious place, the subconscious drives are going to look for opportunities to recreate situations that were painful and confusing and left us without resolution in our childhood. And so we're going to look for people who aren't necessarily a good, harmonious match with us and where we're up to, but rather a good match with what didn't work in the past, where there's still wounds that need treatment. And this is the subconscious drive to treat those wounds. It's to help us, it's to heal us. But what it doesn't understand, because it's very simple, it's powerful but simple, like an ox. It's like a mighty farm animal, but you really have to direct it. And left undirected, it's going to be like, hey, there's pain here. Let's try doing that again and see if we get it right this time. And I think that's basically what repetition compulsion is about. That we're like, well, we gotta turn off the alarm. We've got to stop the pain. So we're going to keep doing this thing until we solve that puzzle and we can like make it work. And if we go along those lines, we're going to keep going around the same circles and everyone's going to suffer and pay for that. Whereas if we decide to become conscious of that and harness that, yoke that ox, right? We can get it to plow our fields and give us a hearty, bountiful harvest, right? Otherwise, it's out there just digging up the turf and creating chaos. It really needs direction. And we can't direct it if we're not regulated. So these go together. When we prioritize emotional regulation and we get to know ourselves, we get to make a conscious template that allows us, it becomes like a yoke for that subconscious drive. You have to let it know, like, look, this is where we're going. This is the work in the field today. And ultimately, I think that when we can do that, we can see clearly what is and isn't good for us. And when we don't do that, we just keep going around the same enclosure, like creating a muddy rut as we do it. And I think it's time to throw open the corral and get outside and do this work so that we're showing up as the kind of people who can have relationships. Yes, it takes two to make or break a relationship. Absolutely. And I think that it's important that we can look for the places in which we were culpable for the outcome. Even if we didn't do something along the way, what did we choose? How did we choose to be in this dynamic? What did we do to further that or allow it to progress? What was it, the unconscious drive in play that we didn't have in check? Look for these things. Even it's not like, well, this person said that, so I did this, and then this happened, and forget the story. What's going on underneath our own inclinations, our own actions? What is driving that? And so I'm back to the basics, which is I almost forget about this, and I don't know how, because it was one of the most profoundly transformational pieces of work I've done ever in any context. And it was a very simple exercise, and I just followed this exercise. Honestly, day one, I felt something go and like shift a little. I was like, what was that? Did I break something? And then over the week, I was like, Yeah, it's really coming online. It's that's like slow burn coming online where I was like, I'm starting to feel this. I'm starting to feel the effect. I'm starting to feel like I can stay with the thing differently because there was a point I was not able to sleep. I wasn't able to get medical care. I didn't have social connections. I didn't have practical supports. I had a world of responsibility. And it was such that if I walked away to take care of myself, I would leave other dependent people who I love very much in dangerous situations. And that just wasn't negotiable for me. I was like, if it's between leaving my post and leaving people I love in danger or getting myself the care I need, I did without the care. And this is part of why physiology is so important because I've had the experience of knowing what role that plays as I've been able to subtract it, as I've been able to get medical care, as I've been able to get the dental work done. Because here's a fun one, just a random aside. A lot of people I know who've dealt with issues like these have dental problems. I think there's a lot of energy that goes into the jaw. Symbolically, it has to do with our ability to express ourselves in the world. And in these cases, we're often forced to swallow that, hold that, lock our jaw, keep our head down, keep our eyes low. And I think that it has an effect on our dental health. It seems to be a recurring theme I encounter in people's stories about how they've had to work through a lot of this. And from that place, I wasn't even an organism. I couldn't be an emotional ecosystem when I wasn't even an organism. And so, yeah, I was highly dysregulated an unfortunate amount at the time, and which would be any amount at the time. But in my case, it was, I don't even know how to measure it. It was almost degrees of dysregulated because when we're dissociating, we're not at the helm. Even if we're calm and we're responding effectively, if we're dissociating, it's still not right. You're still not really there. You're still not really regulated. So, yeah, 100% of the time, to varying degrees of functional and dysfunctional, I think I was just perpetually dissociating because of the pain and the general dysregulation. And being able to get, even with my physical state, my practical situation, even with that being on fire, nothing changed. In fact, it was actively getting worse as I did this work. But starting with that emotional regulation, starting with, it's sort of a reparenting exercise and stopping emotional flashbacks. If you suffer from this, just drop everything else you're doing, get to the basics and start there. Get that under control. Because as I reflect on what has brought me through so many different chapters of this process, that was page one. Absolutely page one. And as I think about the work I'm developing, so I can coach people through workshops and groups and possibly one-on-one, I'm thinking back about how do I distill what I've been given into a system I can then offer to others in a way that I incorporate a lot of the work that I was given by others, and I can fold in my own understanding, build it into the model that's been emerging for me as I've done my work. And different people are going to want different energy. Some people out here are very sweet about it. Some people are very tough love about it. Some people are dry and academic. Some are very personal. And we're gonna move to different things. So I know there's a fair amount of work done on this out here, but I want to contribute another model, another tone, another port in the storm, basically, because if you're living with this, you are living in a storm. Maelstrom is a word people like to use to describe the experience of it. It's like being caught in this epic storm that you can't even orient yourself within. And I know when Matthew Hussey's saying this, he's not talking about people who have it that intensely, but he's seeing it enough that, like, it tells me there are a lot of people out here at least walking through a fog. Maybe it's not a full-on storm, but they're out here in fog. And I think if we want to bring ourselves to a place of clarity and power, page 1, emotional regulation. So you can look up Stop Emotional Flashbacks. Certainly from Richard Grannon, he did a number of videos across the years on this subject. I saw that Anna Runkle also has some work on it I'd like to take a look at. She does a ton of work around this. Her channel's Crappy Childhood Fairy. And then, who is the other one I saw? Heidi Priebe. She also has a piece up, and she does a lot of good work where she really tries to just break down the concepts from sort of an academic to a practical level. And I'd like to hear what she has to say too. But I stopped my search because I wanted to explore why this is important and to share it. And as I'm looking to sort of pivot and maybe reboot this project, and I want to get down to brass tacks. I want to go back to the stuff that was really foundational and lay out the rudiments for other people to be able to come in. And I got lucky. I just fell in on it in an order that brought me to a place. Maybe that's not luck. To be fair, the way that Richard Grannon's presented his material over time is a build. He's been doing this for himself, and as it works, he puts it in the mix. And then that's where you come in, you follow that piece of the work, and you go forward, and you see that it is built to convey us along in a certain way. But I was able to learn the material in that order, because you can just as easily jump from old to new videos out of sequence, right? I also went on the courses, which were more structured and more intended to work that way, which I would also recommend. Very affordable, great value for what you pay, and it would be worth a lot more. And if you got a lot less, it's just so effective to go in and do these simple exercises that basically create an interface between our conscious and our unconscious minds. And it looks silly and it feels weird, but it's very basic stuff that allows that access. It creates that conduit between the two. And it's through there that we can establish our own conscious intent and apply our will to it and harness the subconscious to work with and for us. So this is why I'm sort of in stop, drop, and roll mode to talk about this, because it just lit up for me that I'm sort of building outward from a certain point where I find myself now. That's not going to be helpful for people who are not where I am now. I'm here to sort of receive and guide people as they're coming in from wherever they are. So I need to assume some people are going to be coming in spinning and sparking and cross-eyed like I was when I started doing this process. And I hope that in distilling this, it helps me understand where I've been and how I've gotten here too. So it's a little bit personal, but it's a lot about building for helping others along and sharing what this journey's been for me as I'm coming out to an ever more clear and capable place. Always going to be more work. None of us got this down, but we can get to a place where we're like, hey, that's good enough. In business, you want to create, what is it called? An MVP, minimal viable product. And it's not the best your product will ever be. It's past prototype. You're like, okay, we've worked from the prototype, we've tweaked it, we've got something. It may not be perfect, but it's enough to bring to market. That's what I feel I'm trying to do with my mental fitness, to say there's plenty of room for improvement here, but I've got enough going on that I now can have solid ground and clear vision and act effectively according to my own conscious intent, and be aware of how my subconscious is going to continue to be a powerful force. It's not like, oh, I see you, now you're not going to do that anymore. That would be nice. It's there, it's for life, but the way we relate to that, the way we communicate that, the way we harness that, that's going to be the difference. So, all right, that's a lot of long-winded on and on about the subject, but it's really just the surface. There's so much more to say and explore, and develop and apply here. And so I just wanted to kind of stick a stake in the field for that and say, here's where it started, and here's where I'd like to go back to as I find a starting point for the work I want to share with others as well. So, all right, well, with gratitude for all I've been given and for all the distance it's helped me to cover, and with hope that this is helpful to you and will help you get the ground under your feet or help you cover the distance ahead with more clarity and skill. And it's at least a good use of your 20-some minutes, and that I appreciate you being here and joining me for these half-awake ramblings, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next round. Thank you. Take care.